Hey everyone, it's Dr. Baird at Performance Healthcare Online. Today I'm going to walk you through a 20 to 30 minute workout for low back pain. So again, this is our level 1 workout, very entry level stuff, but one of the best things you can do if you have back pain is find some movement and find some strength, find that works for you. So I'm going to help kind of walk you through that. A few things to keep in mind before we get started is one, that this is designed for people with uncomplicated low back pain. So if you're having something that is very acute, maybe caused by a trauma, you're having numbness, tingling, weakness, any sharp shooting pains, things that might be a little bit more concerning, I strongly suggest that you go see a doctor before performing any sort of online exercise routine. And the second thing to keep in mind is that for strength training around pain is a little bit of different than just strength training for general fitness. So in general, we just want to be careful that we're not doing anything to aggravate the injury. And again, with this entry level 1, this will be level 1. Usually most people are okay, and I'll give you a lot of different variations to get started. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is a little bit of a warm-up. So all we're going to do, start on our hands and knees. If you have a dog like me, you can move him out of the way. And I always set up a timer, so we don't do reps, we just set the timer. So here we go. First thing we're going to do, cat-cows, just for a minute. So again, we're letting the head hang, tucking that pelvis in. This is the cat position, and cow is just going to be the opposite. You're going to lift the head. Important here that you really keep it in that pain-free range. So even if that means kind of smaller movements back and forth here, that's all right. So again, just keep moving through the routine. All we're trying to do is loosen up that spine. One of the best things you can do if you do have pain is move. And again, just keeping it in that pain-free range. But movement should feel really nice. Get started. Good. Next, we're going to move into our side lying twists. So we're just going to lay on our side and have our knees slightly flexed, hands out in front, and we're just going to do some twists. So if you need a pillow, you can. Put a pillow under the neck, or you can just kind of rest the head on the ground. Just do whatever's comfortable for you. But all we're going to do, and again, this should feel like a nice stretch on the back. Sometimes it's called the archer because you've got your arms out in front and you're pulling it back like a bow. But again, just a nice gentle stretch. All we're trying to do is just warm up this spine. I'm obviously running out of room with this wall behind me, but if you have the room, you can bring your hand all the way back. Good. And then we're just going to switch sides. Same thing, but now we're opening up to the left. Good. For me, feels like a really good stretch. It's morning time here, so a little stiff from sleeping in bed. This is a great way to get everything warmed up. All right. Next, we're going to move into a couple hip stretches. So we're going to get into our lunge position here. And we want to stretch out the front side of this back leg. It's just going to be a little bit of a lunge stretch. We're going to keep our trunk nice and upright, and we're just going to bend forward and back. So the first 30 seconds, we're going to kind of ease into the position, moving forward and back, forward and back, and again, should start to feel more of a stretch on the front side of this back leg. And we're going to do one more And then on this last one, we're gonna hold this position for just about 30 seconds. So we should feel this nice stretch on the front side of the leg. If it's feeling good, you wanted to add a little bit more, you can kind of take your arm, bend to the opposite side. You can bend backwards to kind of increase the stretch along the front side of the body, but really just trying to loosen up the hips. And good. And we're gonna switch to the other side. So we're gonna do a lunge stretch on the left side. So same thing, we're gonna spend the first 30 seconds just kind of slowly easing into the position. So just a little bit of a back and forth. Again, we're paying attention. We want to feel a little stretch on the front side of the back leg. So I'm feeling it here on my left. Bandit is helping. Not quite sure what he's doing. I never know what he's doing. All right. So we're going to do one more, and then we're going to hold it again for another 30 seconds. So really try to go kind of as far as you can. Really feel that stretch on the back leg here. And again, if you want, you can kind of bend to the right and bend back. So just be careful bending back. Sometimes if you do have back pain, this can put a little bit more pressure on the low back. So this is not something that you need to do. If you want to get a little bit more stretch, you can squeeze those glutes, and you'll feel that pelvis kind of really engage and get a little bit more stretch on the front. All right, nice work. Last thing we're gonna do is another hip stretch, just standing with our legs as wide as we can. And it's just gonna be a bend to the right, bend to the left, bend to the right. So again, we feel that stretch on the inside of the leg, but also stretching a little bit on that back hip. Nothing crazy here. If you need a little help, I mean, this is good. If that's a little sore on the low back, you can just put your hands down on the mat. It's really just kind of stretching the hips, inside of the groin muscles, just getting a little movement there. We're still in the warm-up phase, so don't need to do anything crazy. All right, good. So now we are getting into the strength phase. So again, this is just level 1 strength training. I'll kind of walk you through it, but again, we want to make sure that nothing really aggravates the pain. So we're going to start with our glute bridges. So on our back, we're going to press through our heels and bring our hips up. And again, just setting the timer for a minute. We're going up and down. Things that you want to watch out for with this glute bridge is your foot positioning. So you don't want to be too far out. You also don't want to be too far in. I'm getting a hamstring cramp right there. Ooh, boy. That's how you know it's working. So again, you don't want to be too far out. You don't want to be too far in. When you come up, ideally you want your shins to be in a vertical position. When you get to the top, you do a little squeeze at the top to get you into that full extension. And again, you should feel it. Back of the hamstrings and the glutes is where we want to feel it. If you're feeling any pull on the front of the quads, it probably means you've got some pretty tight quads and this can pull on them a little bit. But in terms of the muscle that's working, it should be these glutes. The top, your glutes should be nice and firm. Good. All right, moving into clamshells. So we're gonna turn on our side. This one, you can use your arm as a pillow here. You're gonna have your knees flexed forward and just gonna do clamshells side to side. So again, this one's strengthening another glute muscle, this glute med muscle, really important muscle to strengthen for single leg balance and low back pain. Main thing with this one is you don't want to open up so far that you really start to twist at the low back. You want to keep the movement all in your hips. And again, the further this goes along, we're about halfway there. You start to feel it on the outside here. If you're not quite feeling it there, you can bring your knees up a little bit more. Sometimes people go too kind of straight with the knees and feel it in the wrong spot. So again, you can bring those knees forward. And again, keeping it in the hips. So not rotating at the low back, keeping everything in the hips. Good, that's a minute. We're gonna switch on to the other side. Same thing, you can use your arm as a pillow, knees flexed a bit, and we're gonna go ahead and go. Again, working these glute med muscles. Nothing too fancy here. These are what, I think these are also called like Jane Fonda's. She was a little bit before my time, but I think that was like the 80s, where she'd have people doing all these Jane Fondas. Stood the test of time. Really important exercise to do. Nice. But again, I'm feeling it on the outside of the hip here. And just not opening up so far that I start to kind of twist into that low back. Really keep it all in the hips. But for such a simple exercise, I mean, you should be feeling a pretty good burn on the outside of the hips here. All right, good. So now we're going to go to our standing portion. So we're going to start with toe taps. So again, I apologize, I'm very tall, so it's hard to fit my full body in this frame. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna balance on one leg. So the main thing is to have a slightly bent knee. Main thing is you don't wanna lock out your knee when you're doing this exercise. You're doing a slightly bent knee, and then from there, you're just gonna tap in front, tap in the middle, tap to the side, tap to the middle, and tap straight back. Back to the middle, front, back, side, back, and then back, and middle. And so again, it's about how long you can balance on the stance leg. The leg that's doing the work and where you'll feel the burn is gonna be on the stance leg. So for me, it's my left. You're gonna feel it probably in the same spot that you felt that clamshell exercise, which is going to be right on the outside of the glute. But I love this one because it's also really good for balance, which again, a lot of people with back pain have a hard time kind of balancing on one foot. So if you do fall out, it's okay. Just kind of reset and try to get back into it as quick as you can. But the goal is to hold that position as long as you can. Good. That is a minute. So now we're just going to shift to the right. Same thing. Slightly loose knee. Tap in front. Back to the middle. To the side. Back to the middle. Straight back. Back to the middle. Forward. To the middle. You might start to notice one side being a little bit harder than the other. For me, it is. I ruptured my Achilles tendon playing basketball, and my left side is always harder. So I don't feel quite a big burn on this right side because it's a little bit stronger than the left, which is another reason why we like these single leg strengthening exercises. It makes the weaker side work just as hard as the stronger side. So again, if you fall out, just kind of reset everything and get back to the start. 10 more seconds here. And last one, done. All right, so next thing we're gonna get to is our kettlebell marches. So this is our carry variation here. If you have any sort of weight, I have people get pretty creative with this one using gallons of water, frying pans, anything like that. But what we're gonna do is hold the weight right at our chest level here, and then it's gonna be a slow and controlled march in place. So again, it's another little bit of a balance exercise. But when you start to hold weight, what you're going to notice is it's a functional core exercise as well. So the heavier weight that you get, your core is going to have to engage to balance you side to side. So this one looks easy, but if you have some deficiencies in the core strength, it can be pretty difficult. So main thing is, again, slow and controlled. Good. Again, same thing with the toe taps. If you fall out, just get right back in. Keep going. The other thing that we really want to make sure is when you're holding that weight, you're not holding it like passively, like letting your skeleton do all the work. You're staying up nice and strong as you march in place. Good. Okay. Next, we are moving. I'm going to put this up. Tall people problems, you know? It's tough. Okay, is that going to be enough? Almost. So what we're going to do is our hip hinge. So again, anybody with low back pain, one of the most important movements to understand is the hip hinge exercise. So what it's going to look like, we're going to do it for this first round with really just no weight. So again, what we're going to do, loose knees, and then just focus on reaching the hips back, creating a nice straight spine. So again, we're in level 1 today, so it's more about really practicing the hip hinge without any sort of weight. If you just immediately add weight to something and you don't fully have this movement down, you might be doing more harm than good. And I do go into more detail. Again, there's a lot of things to think about with this hip hinge exercise. I'll put a link in the bio, but it is a really important one to get down. So at the bottom, the other thing we watch out for, stop right when you feel a pull in the hamstring. So this is something where I could go lower, but again, I start to use all my back, which is not what we're going after. What we really want to see is keeping that movement in the hips and keeping our spine nice and straight. Good. So that's a minute there. Next, all we're going to do is a box squat. So I'm going to grab a box here. So squat movement patterning, really good for low back pain, really good for building strength. For this one, all we're going to use is a bench behind us. And we're going to reach our hips back and come down. So depending on where you're at, you can sit all the way back down and do a more like sit to stand movement where you're here, sitting down and coming back up. Or if you're feeling pretty good, you just come down, tap the bench, and stand back up. So the squat is another movement that there is a lot to think about. For our purposes, we're keeping it pretty simple. We just want to start that movement by sending the hips back. The reason we start with the box squat is it's a lot safer to start with this behind you, because if you fall out of it, obviously something's going to catch you. Also, one of the problems that can happen with back pain is if you go too low, this happens in people that are more mobile, you can get into an unstable position. So this stops you right when your thighs are about parallel with the ground, so you can really start to build strength in that lower leg. And good. All right. Last exercise that we're going to do is going to be step ups. So if you have anything, I'd say 8 to 12 inches is a good place to start. I'm going to use these 2 yoga blocks. All we're going to do, stand on the block, press up with the leg, and back down. So again, this is level 1. Nothing too fancy. This is actually going to be our lunge patterning. This is the first progression in our lunge patterning. The things that we watch for with this one is that you're pressing up off of this top leg. So a lot of times, especially if people are having knee pain, which back and knee pain go pretty well common together, you'll find that a lot, is that people will want to protect the knee by kind of pushing off this back toe to stand up, which is not what we're going for. We want to strengthen the leg that's on top. The other thing that people do is, especially when they're nursing an injury, is they kind of do this like side to side step up. This is not what we're going for. What we really want is this straight up and down. Almost there. 10 seconds. Sorry you can't see my head. Tall people problems again, I'm telling you. Okay, next one. We're gonna go to the left. You're gonna press up and down. So again, same thing where we're pressing up off of this leg, not letting this back toe push us up, which is what happens a lot of times if people are nursing an injury. Up and down. Up and down, and again, it's that straight up and down and not the kind of side to side up and down. Again, another example of single leg strengthening, so I can feel it a lot more on my left side because of my previous injury on that left side, which is why exercises like this are really important for me to do, because it makes the left leg work just as hard as the right. And sometimes with things like squats, subconsciously that right side's gonna take over. So you gotta train them side to side. All right, good. So that was one time through the entire workout. What we're gonna do now is start back at the beginning. So, hey there. We're not going to start with our warm up. You can do another round of cat-cows and side-lying twists if you want. Just pause here and kind of restart. We're gonna start with those glute bridges. On the second round, I'm gonna show you a few things you can do to make it a little bit harder. First one is adding some resistance. So only do this if it felt a little bit too easy on that first round. If not, keep going body weight. But if you have a circular band like this, all you're gonna do, make an X in the middle, grab the two circles, you're gonna put your feet in, and then put it around your knees here. And from there, gonna do those same glute bridges. So you got the timer for a minute, up and down, good. Hopefully hamstring doesn't cramp on me this time. So the band, again, all it does is add a little bit of resistance so you feel it a little bit more towards the back of the hamstring and glutes here. Good. Again, at the top, you can squeeze those glutes at the very top. Make sure you're getting into that full extension. It also engages those glutes, which is going to be really important for back pain. Getting stronger glutes is probably one of the most important things you can do for anyone with low back pain, anybody with any sort of pain, really. We spend so much time in our lives just sitting at chairs. The glutes get out of doing a lot of work. They're supposed to be the strongest muscle in our body. So stuff like this, it's going to be really important. Good. That's a minute. We're going to move back to our clamshells. Again, another variation with a slightly different band. So if you have one of these smaller circular bands, you can add a little bit of resistance to the clamshell by hooking it just right over the knees there. You can rest your hand on your hips, and again, lifting the knee up. Do the Jane Fonda. I think that's a song. All right, yeah, that's definitely feeling a lot more with this band already right here on the top. So again, the only reminder here Bandit, get out of the way, is not to open up so far that your low back starts to twist. So really just keeping it in the hip, even if that means you don't get quite as high. Oh boy, starting to feel it in the hips. The band making it a lot harder. Good. Almost there. 10 more seconds. And one. Good. We're just going to switch to the other side. So if this is hard to do for a full straight minute, it's okay to break these clamshells up kind of like 30 seconds each side. So do like 30 seconds, switch, 30 seconds, switch, and do that twice instead of a minute all the way through, which I'm kind of wishing I did with this band on, because the band makes it a lot harder. And again, it's funny going through it. I mean, I really feel it a lot more for me on this left side. I mean, that injury was 10 plus years ago, but those imbalances can last for a long time. But again, another reason to train each side individually. Just keep moving through it. If you're struggling, again, getting stronger is hard. Getting stronger is a hard thing to do. Kind of push through it. 3, 2, 1. Good. All right. We're going to move to our standing. So slowly make your way up to standing. I'm going to move this camera so you can see my face. Perfect. Okay. All right. So now we've got those toe taps. So again, slightly loose knee here. You're just going to tap in front, back to the middle, tap to the side, back to the middle, tap straight back, back to the middle. If you're feeling crazy, you can add a fourth movement in there. So front, side, straight back. The fourth one, if you want to kind of reach behind you a bit, you don't have to do this one, but if you want to add a little bit more challenge, your balance is feeling pretty good, that's a good one to do. You're probably starting to notice round 2 is a little bit harder than round 1. Getting a little bit more tired, and that's all right. Good. Almost there. Last round through. Again, if you fall out, just kind of reset and try to get right back in. Good. All right. So again, that's on the left leg. You should feel it on the outside of that left hip by the end there. Moving over to the right, same thing. We're going to go forward, out to the side, straight back, out to the side. If you want to add that fourth one in. Again, slightly loose knee. Main thing with this one, really don't lock your knee out. That's not going to be great for your knees, which again, we've worked with a lot of people with arthritis, and that's kind of one of the common things that they want to do. They get their stability through that passive stability of like locking the knee out, when we want more active stability of the muscles providing the stability. Starting to get a nice little sweat going myself. How about you? All right, good. So moving on to that hip hinge patterning. Again, this is probably the most important one to get down. Again, I don't cover it in as much detail as I do here, but I do have articles doing it, covering that. It is really important to get down. If you want to make this one a bit harder, you can move on to the weighted hip hinge, which again is just carrying a little bit of weight. Let the weight hang naturally. Weight pulls you straight down as you send those hips back. Same exact movement. You're going to feel more of a pull in the hamstrings. This is just how we progress that hinge. But again, you don't want to move to this until you really, really have that hip hinge movement down, because the more weight you add, even a small discrepancy in the movement can cause more low back pain, which what we're trying to do with this workout is ease low back pain. So it's okay if you don't have a weight. Again, loose knees, sending the hips back. I'll have you keep going. The other thing I'll talk about really quick is, again, keeping it all in the hips. So this isn't a squat. A lot of times when people are learning to hinge, they do this kind of little squat hinge. That's not what we want. It's about how far can you reach those hips back. Whereas we kind of transition, we got 5 more seconds here. The squat, which we got next, is getting the hips down. So again, hinge is hips back, squat, our hips down. So again, we're moving into our box squat, just having a chair right behind you, unlocking at the hips, bringing the hips down, and doing some squats. Again, probably a little bit harder than round 1. The other thing, again, we go into more depth in separate videos, but you can play around with your squat stance. A lot of times, this is how I was taught in high school, was the hip width, toes pointed forward. And a lot of times that can cause a lot of pinching in the front of the hips. The truth is everybody's anatomy is a little different. So there's no like one set squat stance for everybody. So you can kind of play around with it as you do this. The 2 things you play around with are the width of your legs and then the toes pointed out. So I actually like a pretty narrow stance with my toes almost at 45 degrees, but that's not for everybody. All right, good. Last one, we got 1 more minute each side, so 2 more minutes total. We're going into our step ups. So again, nothing crazy here. If you want to make it harder, all you got to do is add a little bit of weight to it. So if round 1 felt easy, you want to make it a little bit harder on yourself, just add a little bit of weight. Doesn't matter what hand, as long as you keep it consistent. It just kind of works it a slightly different way. But again, make sure you're pressing up off this top leg and that you're not doing the kind of side to side step up. It really should be a straight up and down movement. If you don't have a weight, the other thing you can do to make it harder is just get a higher box. So right now I'm using kind of 2 yoga blocks. If I wanted to make it harder, I could just get a 3rd. Good, we got 1 more minute. Nice work, almost done. 30 seconds left. I'm starting to get a little bit of a sweat myself. I also turned the heat on in here. Maybe not a good idea, it was cold when I got in. All right, 10 more seconds. Again, same thing. Pressing up off of this right foot and not letting yourself do those side to sides. 3, 2, and 1. And we are done. So that's the workout for today. You can see, I mean, for something so simple, it is a good amount of work. I got a little sweat going on. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to our page. We'll be posting more workouts, more progressions to get stronger and stronger. Looking forward to it. Bye.